And why do you think it's important to have belief in this world? Why do you think it's so important?
Well, one would argue it's
fundamental.
Well, fundamentally coherent to who we are. That's what my position would support. If a person makes that claim, what you just said, and it coheres to a system that doesn't have an adherence to any belief in particular, refuted the claim itself. That claim has no basis in fundamental reality. It doesn't make sense what you just said. If that was somebody who said, I don't believe in anything, if you said that, that wouldn't have made any sense because it's self-refuting. We have to have a belief, because then he came to the table with the belief that he's trying to find truth with asking me a question, let alone that statement itself. It is a premise. It is a belief. It stems from a belief for you to interject in such a way in something. So coherently, I would say, again, I've found truth in Christianity. So after doing my deductions, I've come to conclude that is the truth. And I think what it fundamentally boils down to, if you want to look outside of Christianity to support the beliefs, that you can find justification in philosophy. You can study this in philosophy. Now, there is an important factor that has to be maintained in doing so, is understanding that our beliefs are not necessarily determined by disseminating evidence because they are. You and I can read the same book. We can go through the same motions. You can come out with a different observation than I can, not because we have observed something different, but the paradigms at which we assert them are present. So if you're looking at things from a different paradigm than I am, well, we're going to come to different conclusions. So the uneducated, I would say, or the incoherent learner would deduce that as being subjectivity, but in reality, it's different paradigms. And this is why we have different beliefs. And it's not necessarily because there is no objective truth. It's because paradigms count as something. So you can evaluate things at a certain basis that fundamentally give them value based on your experience. Well, experience has told me that, I have to go with my gut. And I'm going to come from a background where I say my experience has failed me. My gut has failed me because I trusted it. That doesn't give you the right, or me the right, to say that is the paradigmatic, that is the fault of the paradigm, or the fault that, because everything's subjective. No, it could just mean that it is a logical fallacy, which it is. It's appeal to emotion. Appeal to emotion is not a justification for any basis of truth claim, because it can be severely subjective. How do you determine what truth is? And so I think, if I'm going to answer your question simply, what grounded my belief in the nuanced Christianity that I believe in now was at a help of doing research in philosophy and theology. As far as what grounds, and what grounds me in Christianity is that, plus the experience I've had with it anecdotally.
Well, and how can I explain this? You talked about geopolitics earlier. In what way did that enlighten your decision of following? Well, to start, you're Orthodox, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm becoming a catechumen next week, which is being
explain that.
It's being inducted as a learner. So I'm going through these courses to become Orthodox. And that is, the church takes you on and they give you sessions and classes just to make sure you know what you're getting into here.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Orthodox, they don't take an approach where, okay, you want to become, saved tomorrow, or it's not about salvation necessarily, but you want to become a part of our church tomorrow. You can do that. No, you're allowed to be a part of the church. They allow you to be in the church functioning. You go to the services, you act, and stand side by side as one of them. But to become Orthodox, to get baptized, is essentially what it means to receive the sacraments, to get chrismated. These are all ordinances of the church that allow you to become Orthodox. In the process of that, you have to be educated. You have to be taught what you're doing and help guided so that you purify your spirit before you get baptized. And that is the process I will be going through. All of this academic studies before I did to justify my reason for being in the Orthodox assembly at all is what really drove this decision in the first place.
What really, what impacted you the most and what you learned?
I must say, so basically, it's funny how my journey started. It's funny because I slowly branched away from Protestantism. We were attending a Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada church here, which is a branch of Protestantism.
Can you explain, to a layman, what is Protestant church? Like, what is the difference between like Catholic, Protestant, like?
Yeah, so basically, Catholics cohere to the theology of Roman Catholicism.
Yeah.
Basically, if you want to deduce, what's actually going on, we have to go into the history too of it. A brief summary is the church that existed from the beginning of the first millennium and all the way till now has been divided from its inception. So we believe that Christianity was established after Jesus came, but it coheres to Judaism prior. So it branches from there. And when Jesus came, he established his church on earth and sent out his apostles to speak the truth and teach the truth. But he also imparted an ordinance of the church. He imparted an organization called the church. And on a spiritual level, we are the church as Christians, but he imparted on us an organization called the church. That organization had certain beliefs. Those certain beliefs extended all the way until now, we would claim, as Orthodox. We cohere to them as per given by God himself, and to the Old Testament, which is before Jesus came and fulfilled the prophecy. And along those lines, when you do the history, when you do the research, you can see how politics was the reason primarily for its branching away. So we argue Orthodoxy is the first version of Christianity. In 1056, when there was a schism, which means separation, Catholicism was created. And Catholicism was based upon more of an imperialistic design than Orthodoxy was. Orthodoxy was not imperial. We didn't believe that we had a prime decision maker on earth who was not Christ. We believe in monarchy, yes, but we believe Christ is the king. We make our decisions based on what he gives, what ordinances he gives us. We don't create our own. We don't branch further away from
You don't
that.
listen to no man, no mortal.
Well, we do, but we make sure how to deduce what truth is from fallacy based on the ordinances that Christ has given us. And it's not to take his position. He gave people the power to foster the church. We like to think like the laity of the churches are sheeps, and then there's a shepherd who is the pastor, who is the bishop. They are representing Christ. They are not Christ. And they have a huge responsibility to Christ at the end of this life. They're going to have to answer for everything they've done, if it's coherent to him or not. They don't take his place, though, but that's what happened when the Catholics separated, sadly. It was more into there was also a philosophical, theological element there.
What is that?
Well, it was basically the doctrine specifically that they disagreed with, or they added to, was in the creed that we recite. We recite a Nicene Creed. It's a fundamental breakdown of what we believe on God and who he is, essentially. And it's recited a certain way, and the Pope added in an element to that creed without anybody's suggestion. So in the beginning of the millennium, the church separated before the Catholics were even involved. When Jesus sent out the apostles, they went to certain locations in the Middle East and into Rome as well, and established the church. Basically, they were establishing decentralized churches to start, the process and basically go further from there. When it got to Rome, over the years, there's a huge ton of history there to really break down their mindset on why they did what they did. But essentially what happened is they got overwhelmed with the sense of efficacy and power and of imperialism. So they became kind of like, okay, well, here's why we actually rule over all of you churches, and that you're not actually decentralized. And the churches sent back, they're like, You've never ruled over us. We've always been decentralized, including you. There were implications there. We appealed to Rome for questions. Each church appealed to each other for questions and such. If you break down the history of that, you could see that was the case. But Rome found this kind of edge to find power in of itself, that it was endowed with imperial power to make decisions that would basically do whatever it wanted.
Overwhelmed by power.
Overwhelmed.